Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo. We are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. And, of course, I'm joined by WWE Hall of Famer himself, the $1 million man, Ted DiBiase. Ted, what's going on, brother?
Hey, buddy, it's all you. That's what I said. You know, everybody's got a price, but some things in life are priceless. And I would consider you one of my priceless treasures.
Oh, Ted, what a compliment from the
You're a good guy, man. You're a good guy.
Dude, I appreciate you too, brother. And I appreciate getting to hear your story week after week and kind of, you know, we're archiving it. You know, one of the cool things about doing these podcasts with you and Jake and Hacksaw is that, like, you know, this is one of those things that 30 years from now, it's still going to exist and people can go back and revisit all this history. So it's really kind of a cool way to archive some of these untold stories of your career. And look, we're trying to continue telling a story that we began last week, 50 years ago in 1974, and the start of your professional wrestling career. We covered a lot of it last week, but now we're starting to get into the nitty gritty where we're actually talking about you stepping into the ring. And I'm excited to get some of these untold details of what was going on with you. If you're ready to dive in.
Let's dive in. I hope, you know, the only thing that's going to stop us is my lack of memory.
Well, I'll do the best I can to help nudge you along, and because look, we're talking 50 years ago. I'm trying to, like, some of my buddies asked me about something that happened 10 years ago, and I'm like, no memory of that. Sorry, bud. So we'll do the best we can here to tell this story. But I want to remind everybody that if you want to get this podcast early with no ads, you've got to go to OneTrueSportTV.com and get subscribed as one of our members. Also, if you're watching us here on YouTube, you can see up in the corner there that we've got Ted's new priceless t-shirt, and that's available at OneTrueSport.com. Ted, you're wearing a cool shirt yourself there. What is that?
It says, "A blood donor saved my life." And on the back, it's a gigantic cross.
That's a cool looking shirt, man.
Yeah, Jesus did it all, buddy.
Yes, he did, and I would also love to incorporate some merch surrounding your time as a minister and a follower of Christ into our store. So keep your eyes peeled. We're going to be loading up our One True Sports store with a ton of stuff, and it's really kind of a love letter to wrestling fans of the 80s, 90s, and even some of today. So stay tuned. You'll see what I mean. But all right, Ted, I know you've got some limited time today, so we'll dive into these notes and get through it.
Okay.
So Ted, I know as you trained, you were making money as a referee. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the summer between sophomore and junior year. That would be 74. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the summer that I refereed, and I had been. I guess the other job that I had, I was a lifeguard at a city swimming pool in Amarillo.
Ah, okay.
So I can't remember if I was doing both of those things, but by and large, I think it was the refereeing. And I mean, for a guy who's in college, and the other thing that I was able to do, which not everybody was able to do, is that I kept my my room. Like my dorm room,
which was part of your scholarship.
Yeah, and but that's not supposed to be through the summer,
right?
And that's the and with refereeing and stuff, that would have been the summer of 74.
Okay, so between being a referee and being a lifeguard, you're paying your bills, getting by, feeding yourself.
Oh, yeah, somewhere along in there, I got married.
So for a young guy, you got a lot going on.
Yeah, to number one, it was like I think I was 20 years old. Man,
wow.
Yeah, ouch is right, dumb butt. Yeah, and of course Jeanette was my first wife's name, and we had known each other when we were younger because we both lived in the same apartment complex. And so I go back to Amarillo, back to basically Canyons, 11 miles south of Amarillo. And I'm walking through a mall one day, and I walk into this store, and there she was. And, you know, we hooked up and started sharing memories about, you know, when, you know, 3 years later or what, you know, 69 and what have you. And we started dating and then, and got married. And it was just, you know, I wasn't very smart.
Because I don't imagine that a lifeguard job and then making money on the side as a referee. I don't imagine you're making a fortune, but you're making a big commitment to a young lady getting married.
Yeah, well, that was the other thing is that when I got married, I now had to, you know, I couldn't, like, you know, before I had a free dorm room, you know, now I've got to have an apartment. And basically, Jeanette, who was my first wife's name, and she's the one that had the job and held down the fort.
How are you getting the work in as a wrestler? Is it happening like before the shows that you're reffing on?
I knew enough about wrestling. I grew up in it. I had refereed for a summer, and so there was no need for them to take me in the ring. And okay, now, you know, I had already learned how to take all the bumps. You know, now where you really learn is in the ring. That's where you really learn. You learn it doing it. And I feel sorry for a lot of guys today because, you know, you can have a match and call a match and do whatever, you know, with a bunch of people that are your peers sitting around that ring. But you don't really learn how to wrestle until you're sitting in front of a live crowd. The summer of '75 is when Dick Murdoch said he could get me booked with Bill Watts and made Bill understand that I was just starting, you know, that I had refereed the previous summer. And of course, you know, he knew I was a kid who grew up in the wrestling. So I wasn't like a total idiot, you know, coming in there. And so, and that back then, it's, you know, it's like, and so I started and I would be like I would be on the opening match every night, wherever we were wrestling, you know, but the guy across the ring was a veteran. Somebody who would call the match, and you know, and that's how you really learn this game. You know, if you're not in front of a live crowd, you know, you can learn some, but you learn it by doing it, and that's the way. That's old school. One guy was a guy named Bruiser Bob Sweetan.
Oh yeah,
and although Sweetan was not the greatest, you know, personality in the world. I mean, he was kind of, I don't know, he was out there, but he could go.
Jake has said that Bruiser Bob helped him early on in his career, but he said as a human being, he was a piece of shit.
Yeah, pretty much. Thanks, Jake.
Jake can sum it up pretty well.
Yeah, but just like Jake said, he was great. He was good, very good wrestler.
So you were learning to take bumps kind of on the fly because you're going from being a referee to them saying like, okay, let's get into the ring.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I had like there were a couple of Japanese guys that came to work because the Funks were basically they were booking all of the American talent for All Japan Pro Wrestling, and so a couple of the Japanese guys came over and. There were 2 or 3 times that I got in the ring with them. You know, I learned how to arm drag. I learned how to slam somebody. I learned how to take a slam and everything. Yeah, you know, that's the whole deal. It's like a cat always lands on his feet. A wrestler always lands flat back with his head up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, and you just learn it and it just becomes second nature. You know, and hitting the ropes and all that stuff. So, the biggest advantage I had was, you know, when I look back at it, and I've told Bill Watts this, you know, my first boss as a wrestler was probably one of the sharpest guys on on the block. Bill Watts is a sharp guy,
Mm-hmm.
very intelligent, graduated from Oklahoma, big guy himself, had been a wrestler, and and he knew how to do it. And, you know, and he surrounded himself with good talent. He knew what good talent was, and that's who he brought into his territory. And so, you know, I might be on the first or second match, but the other guy in the ring with me is, you know, like a 6 or 7 year veteran, and he may not be in the main event, but he knows what the hell he's doing. And that's where you learn, you know. And so you learn it by doing it. And, you know, traditionally the heel, the villain in the match calls the shots. He calls the whole match. I don't know what they do today, and I don't really care, but that's the way it used to be. And so all I did when and of course you start out a young guy, and especially me back then, I was such a baby face. I mean, I look some of like my first wrestling pictures. It's like I wondered if I looked like I was maybe 17 or 18. But anyway, I started.
So, Ted, you're coming from college football, so you're no stranger to physical strain on your body. How did your body react after your first time taking bumps, hitting the ropes, all that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, you know, hitting the ropes is something that you learn to do. And actually, I think I got a little bruise on my side because it's not a natural movement. But once you've done that over and over and over again, you don't even realize it anymore. And I learned, you learn how to take all the bumps and, to do an arm drag and how you take a turnbuckle the right way. And, just all the basics. But I pretty well knew all of that stuff when I started.
Ted, your early training and stepping into the ring, obviously, taking the ropes and stuff like that, it'll beat you up, and taking bumps, obviously, it can be hard on your back. What would you say was the most difficult part of your early training? The stuff that you're like, oh boy, I don't know about this.
Marcus, I mean, there was never anything that there's nothing I didn't look forward to.
Wow.
We didn't get in the ring every day. I mean, like the Japanese, the Japanese guys, those guys, but they put their young guys through hell. Those guys do, oh my gosh, Hindu squats and doing all kinds of stuff. I basically started by getting in the ring and having a match in front of a live crowd.
Incredible.
It's old school, but again, the guy across the ring knows that I'm a rookie. He knows, he's got to lead me, and because we have our own language out there. We talk all the time, and so basically, I picked it up fast.
Pretty remarkable. Outside of the ring, what were you doing to get your body ready, or where it needed to be as far as cardio, weight training, stuff like that?
Nothing.
Really?
Nothing. I mean, you're talking about a different day. I mean, it's like you can look at me throughout my wrestling career, and there came a point where, I started working out on a regular basis, and I got good shoulders and good traps, but I never looked like a bodybuilder. And if you watch amateur wrestlers, they're in really good shape, but they don't look like bodybuilders. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I mean, what I did is I got in the ring every night and had a match.
And that's what worked your cardio?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's kind of like, but if you're wrestling, you go back old school, I'm in the ring with a lot of guys. I'm not bouncing around that ring like ding, 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 ding. That's what, if we want to have a discussion about what's wrong with wrestling today, I can do that too.
Yeah.
I see a lot of guys get in the ring and they do all these spots and none of it means crap. and it looks bad. Nobody sells anything. It's just like one bump after the next. You know, that's not the story, man. It's like when you grab a headlock on a guy and you take him over and you sit in that headlock, and he tries to fight his way out, or you know, the whole thing is, if it were real, how would it look? And they don't do it anymore.
Right.
They don't. Very rarely.
So yeah, you were more focused on storytelling, grabbing a hold, working slowly. You know, that's the thing in wrestling that we always hear is like, hey kid, if you think you're moving too fast, slow, or if you think you're moving too slow, slow down. Meaning essentially take your time and talk to your opponent when you're in the ring. It's okay to grab a hold. You don't have to be constantly moving or doing something, correct?
Exactly. That's it. Grab a hold, you know. It's like, and I would watch. That's the other thing I did is I watched all the if I was not on the first match, or on the second, third, or fourth match, I watched the matches before me. So when I went out there, I wouldn't repeat what they've already seen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like if I watch one match, you know, a guy works. You know, he works the leg, you know, and another guy works the head. Well, then I go out there. I'm gonna grab an arm. I'm not gonna go out and work the same holes and body parts. It's funny, but it's true.
Because you want it to be a unique match, something that stands out. And if you're doing all the same shit that the other people are doing, you're not going to stand out. It's just smart.
Yeah.
Now, do you remember during your early days when, not just as a ref, but even as a young wrestler, when you're making towns, do you remember who you would have been traveling with during those early days?
Oh gosh. Well, I think I traveled with Sweet Tan a little bit.
Oh boy.
You know, and like I said, he wasn't really. He was pretty much a derelict. Yeah, I mean. What I would talk to him about is wrestling, and not just him. You know, Buck Robley was another guy.
Great one.
And Buck Robley was a great wrestler, and he was a great booker. Because there was a time that when he took the book for Watts and did a real good job booking the shows, and you know, Hanson and Brody, you know, they weren't there. They were there right when I got there, but right when I started, the summer of '75. You know, actually, I made my first road trip with Brody. He picked me up at the airport in Shreveport, and we went to Monroe, and we went to I think we went to Jackson, and wrestled in Jackson, and then drove down to Baton Rouge.
That's a good guy to be in the car with and learn from.
Oh yeah, well, Brody was just, you know, he was pretty much a loner, but you know, him and Hanson were good friends, and you know, Stan and I both went to West Texas. Brody did too, actually. Went to West Texas State.
Wow. Now, what was the expectation? Because you're the young guy in these cars traveling with old veterans. So what's the expectation as far as you're concerned? Are you doing most of the driving? Are you paying for a lot of gas? Or how does that look for you?
No, you know, back then, whoever was driving would charge trans. In other words, back then it was like, I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 cents a mile.
Mm.
You know, like I don't know what it would be today, but so if you're the guy driving, then everybody you usually got 3 other guys in the car, and they're paying you know trans. So if you had a round trip 200 miles, you know, what would that be if you were giving them 5 cents a mile or something? I don't know.
It would add up, you know, especially back in those days. It was, you know, gas wasn't crazy expensive. So yeah, it's, you know, argument could be made. I think, you know, I've also heard about a lot of guys saying like, just buy my beer in town. And then they, you know, drink the guy under the table.
Yeah.
Really get their money's worth. What can you tell us about the value of traveling with veteran wrestlers and having conversations during car trips?
Well, I mean, you learn a lot there. I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, and of course you didn't do it every night. You didn't get in the, so you've already traveled, a long trip getting there, and you wrestled the show, and now you're either going to stay over or you're going to go on to the next town, or you're going to go back to wherever home base was.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and a lot of times, I mean, you talk about the show, talk about a match, or who's, and I would ask the guys that I really respected. I would ask them. I said, if you have time, I would appreciate it if you watch my match and let me know what you think. And they would. There were a lot of guys that were more than willing to do that, and that's how you learn. But you really learn by doing it, because when it's in the moment, you feel it.
Mm.
I can't even explain that. It's something that's intangible. You know when it's time to do something.
Ted, what do you remember about selecting your ring gear, getting boots, stuff like that? Like, how did you come to those kind of decisions?
Well, there used to be a place where you could order, and then I'm trying to think who. I can't think of the person's name now, but I got the name, and I would order. I got the first time I got fitted, and so they knew my size, and after that I would just call them and order them, and I can't remember who that was now, but a lot of the later boots, especially like when I became the $1 Million Man, and I got the big dollar sign on the side of my boot. But there used to be a place where you could order wrestling gear, and along with that wrestling gear, you could order boots. But I just can't remember ever having I don't know. That's kind of a, I do remember, getting the information for the person who tailor made them, who made them for you, made them to fit, and so that's who I got my boots from. Actually, I tell you who it was.
Who's that?
I have a cousin. Out in Arizona. His name is Ray, and Ray's as cowboy as they come. I mean, he was a bull riding cowboy. And I tell you what, I'll wrestle anybody. I said, but you got to be out of your mind to climb on the back of a bull that's not happy about you being there, and you get bucked off, and here he comes.
Yeah,
you better get up and run anyway. No, but my cousin Ray he would make cowboy boots, and I said, so if you can make cowboy boots, could you make and I showed him my wrestling boots. He said, oh yeah, I can make them for you. So he sized me up, and anytime I needed a pair of boots, I called my cousin.
How about that? And
yeah.
I'm sure he gave you a fair rate too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Is your cousin still around?
Yeah, he's still there.
All right, and you'll have to give me his contact info because I'm starting to shop around for.
I don't know. I don't know if we'd be making boots anymore.
Yeah, it was worth a shot. Ted, there's a great early picture of you out there. I actually used it for the cover art for our last episode. It's you. You can tell you're a really young man, and you're out there wearing some black wrestling trunks. Now, there's no easy way to put it, so I'll just ask. The first time you put on a pair of wrestling trunks and you're going out there in front of a crowd, it's essentially like going out there in your underwear. As a young man doing that, how did you feel about it?
Brother, it all came natural to me.
Didn't bother you?
It didn't bother me because I grew up in that atmosphere. I was used to seeing guys, wrestlers, and we just called them trunks, and your wrestling trunks. And, so it's like, I didn't picture it as being out there in my underwear. I said, I guess it would be closer to, and if you were a wrestler, there's a lot of the wrestlers that, you know, when we would in different towns, like in Amarillo, I mean, there'd be a group of wrestlers. They, you know, they all had an apartment in the same place. In the summer, they'd all go out by the pool, and they're all in their tights. I mean, they're in their tights because you're not going to wear a bathing suit that comes halfway down your thigh. You know what I'm saying? And you get half of your leg tan. You ain't going to do that. Yeah, you got to wear your gear. And so I that never bothered me.
Wow.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, I'm 70 years old now, and I still have a couple pair of those, and you would catch me dead at the pool wearing that today.
So you're at poolside wearing a Speedo, so you can
don't look like it used to.
You're at poolside back in the day wearing a Speedo, so you can get your tan looking right, and then you're going out in front of a crowd wearing the trunks. And actually, I just recorded with Jake yesterday, and somebody asked a question, so I'll ask you, Ted. Somebody asked Jake, what did you wear underneath your tights to avoid getting lines? And I was like, Jake, I know that a lot of guys were wearing thongs. Was that something that you were wearing? And he said, no, I would wear regular wrestling trunks underneath my long tights. So Ted, I'll ask you, were you wearing a thong underneath your tights?
Well, no. I mean, what I had was, I had a pair, of the wrestling, the outer wrestling tights. And what I had was a smaller version of that, and not as thick, almost like a, you know, man, I could, you know, I could go in my room and get them and show them to you, but you know, I called them under tights, and it wasn't a jock strap, you know, but it would fit you snug enough that it served as such.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So.
All right. We ask the hard questions here on Everybody's Got a Pod, folks. All right. Let's get to your first recorded match. So again, I'm emphasizing the word recorded here because I don't know if you had a match before this or what the story was, but when I go to Cage Match, I think it's cagematch.net. I don't know. Just type in Cage Match Wrestling on Google and you can find the same resource. This is the first recorded match that they had for you. It was June 7th, 1974 in the Taylor County Coliseum in Abilene, Texas. And you've got some great partners for it. Two guys that you told me last week you grew up admiring. And now you are stepping into the ring with them for your first recorded match. You're paired up with Dick Murdoch and Terry Funk. And you're going to take on the team of Jim Dillon, better known today as J.J. Dillon, and Patriots 1 and 2, who were Bobby Hart and Bob Griffin. Ted, does that sound accurate to you?
Yes. Yes, it was my first. That was my first recorded, and you know, but you know what I didn't know that it was recorded.
Oh no! So when I say recorded, it's the first match that's on record for you. So there's no video of it.
Okay, yeah. And you know, and JJ Dillon. You know, I remember him when he first came into the territory. You know, he came in as a heel. And he and Dick Murdoch had a hell of a run together. Mm-hmm. And no, you know, but to this day, I love that guy. He was good. JJ was good.
Man, everybody says what a great bumper he was, and just again, one of those guys with really natural instincts for pro wrestling, and he parlayed that into a legendary career as a manager as well.
Yeah.
And so, Ted, just for perspective, 1974, you're 20 years old. You're stepping into the ring with a bunch of grown men who have been in wrestling for a long time. And, man, it's just interesting to hear that, especially because it's two guys that you grew up admiring, Dick Murdoch and Terry Funk. And now here you are, and they're your tag team partners for your first match. Like, what a really cool, fun, interesting footnote.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that whole match that they did a deal where, like, the week before or something, I was the referee, and somehow something happened, and I just can't remember what the reason was that they were going to come back. You know, this is like yeah. And I got two of the best partners that you could find anywhere. You know, and they go, yeah, who you got? I said, how about Terry Funk and Dick Murdoch?
Man, Well, it's a cool angle and a cool way for you to get started. I would have to imagine, though, that because you're green as goose shit, as the saying goes, that you're spending a lot of time on the apron and maybe get like a hot tag. Do you happen to remember that?
Well, not so much that. I mean, it was kind of like because I was the young guy, I was the young upstart, and that's the other thing is people knew the history. People knew that my father was Iron Mike DiBiase, who was one of the biggest names that ever came through there. So, and they knew that, the whole history is kind of like, that I had gone to or was going to West Texas State and all that. So, it wasn't like I'm this total rookie that nobody knows.
Okay.
But by the same token, when I get in there and I'm wrestling them, I was all ears, man. I'm going to do whatever they tell me. So, and I did.
So, okay. And that actually kind of makes sense too, because you don't have to be like a wrestling technician to go out there and get beat up and just listen to the guy, which is probably how the match was structured. They bring you out and maybe beat up on you.
What Coliseum was that?
You were in, hold on, the Taylor County Coliseum in Abilene.
Abilene, Taylor County. Yeah, that's right.
And
it was a Monday night.
Wow, good memory.
Because we went from Taylor County Coliseum and drove across to Odessa, which was on Tuesday night. And then we get up on Wednesday and we would drive down another 100 miles to San Angelo. And we would wrestle in San Angelo, on Wednesday night. And then we would drive all the way back to Amarillo and wrestle in Amarillo on Thursday night. And then Friday night we would wrestle in Lubbock. And then we would go back to Amarillo and we would do our TV on Saturday morning. And then if you had the short trip, you would go to Hereford, 30 miles away. Or if you had the long trip, you would go to Pueblo or Pueblo, Colorado, or Colorado Springs. One of them was 300, the other was a 350. And whether you're in Clovis, New Mexico, Clovis, New Mexico, or up in the Colorados, everybody's going to go from there to Albuquerque. And Albuquerque was every Sunday night. Wrestle in Albuquerque on Sunday night, drive all the way back to Amarillo, 300 miles, and get up and go to Abilene on Monday.
So I want our listeners to think about that for a second. You're a 20-year-old man and you're fresh into this business. You just got married. You're trying to make ends meet, and you are jumping into the wrestling game with both feet. You're gone. You're traveling. You're making these towns and trying to kind of make your bones and learn along the way. Like, man, how did you feel about all the travel associated with your new line of work?
Well, I guess because I grew up in it, it's like I don't know. I just looked at it at this. This is part of the game. If you're going to be in the game, you're either all in or you're not in. Because if you can't stand riding in a car, then you don't become a wrestler.
Yeah, maybe not for you if you can't take the travel.
Yeah.
Now, I'm asking you to reach back 50 years this month. So if you don't recall, it's fine. How big would you say the crowd was for a match like that? I mean, this is your first match. Would you say it was a packed house?
Oh gosh, no. In Abilene, no. Abilene, the building in Abilene is a very nice building, but they put the ring at the far, like the dressing rooms were, back over, like one on each side, and they would put the ring on as far, I guess, to the other side as they could, so where the wrestlers would go, from their dressing rooms to the ring from each side of the ring. And yeah, it was, Abilene would be, oh my gosh, they didn't do big, they never did huge houses there. Occasionally, but Abilene was never a town where you would fill that building to capacity ever.
So I know you grew up in wrestling, and obviously you're familiar with, the crowds, because you'd been out there as a referee before and stuff, but now you're out there with a couple guys you idolized as a kid as your tag team partners, and again some ring veterans in JJ Dillon and the Patriots 1 and 2. Would you say that you were nervous going into the match?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, you know, and again, the guys, they went out of their way to, you know, help me relax. You know, he said, just listen, just, you know, there's only one way to learn this thing, and that's to do it. And so, you know, I went out and did it, you know, and of course I was getting, as it went along, I was getting a lot of encouragement because I believe that everybody saw, you know, that I had a natural knack for it. You know, and I said, I had a natural knack for it because it's what I had loved and wanted to do since I was 10 years old, watching my dad on TV.
Afterwards, do you remember coming to the guys and asking for advice? Like, were you one of the young guys who was coming and asking a million questions after a match?
Well, you know, not so much as asking a million questions, but going to them and basically saying, okay, you know, how'd I do? You know, and they were honest, and you know, nobody, you know, I never had any like serious criticism. I mean, in terms of, you know, don't ever do that, or don't ever do that. You know, if there was any criticism, it was like little stuff,
nuances.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that they understood that, and just like the Funk brothers, both of those guys, I mean, they grew up in the business, so it was almost a natural thing for them to do, is to step into the ring and carry on in their father's footsteps.
And it was the same case for you, where you were like a fish to water.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, your first match ever, 50 years ago, June 1974, did you feel like you did a pretty good job out there? Or afterward, you know, we can always be our own harshest critic. Did you look at yourself and say, like, boy, I need to get better? Or did you feel like, okay, I'm starting something big here?
Well, no, I mean, you can always get, I think, you know, you can always get better, but, you know, I mean, again, back in the dressing room, post match, I mean, they told me, you know, back then, everybody called me Teddy, and they said, Teddy, you know, you did a good job for your first match. You know, you did good, kid. So keep it up.
Man, and let me tell you, as somebody who's training in wrestling now, to have some ring veterans say something like that to you after your first match, it's got to make you feel like $1 million.
Yeah, it was good.
Awesome, man. And hey, look, I love telling this story. This was so great to talk to you about this. I mean, you only get one 50-year anniversary. I'm glad we were able to split it into 2 episodes and really kind of cover it in depth. We're going to be back next week with a new subject. But in the meantime, folks, we want you to get over to OneTrueSportTV.com, and you can enjoy some awesome content over there for free on the regular YouTube channel. But really, what you should be doing is becoming a member there. So we've got the $7.99 plan, we've got the $24.99 plan, and we've also got the $39.99 plan, our traveling champion plan. And that's where you get a lot of exclusive access. You're going to get birthday shout outs. You're going to get to do Q&As with Ted, Jake, all the talents that we have associated with the network eventually. And there's just so many perks. I can't even go down the list of it. So do us a favor, just go and check it out. And if you have any questions, you can always DM me at Marcus P. D'Angelo on X. Speaking of social media, make sure that you follow Ted at MDM Ted DiBiase on all platforms, and follow One True Sport at 1T Sport on X and Facebook, and at One True Sport TV on Instagram. Folks, thank you so much for joining us, and Ted, thank you so much for telling this awesome story here 50 years later.
Well, thanks, Marcus. Thank you, because, you know, I know you do a lot of work to go back and find all this stuff, and I appreciate it, because you know, you're bringing a lot of it, it's like stuff that I hadn't thought about, or it's like, oh yeah, like you'll say some things and oh my gosh, yeah, I remember that. What's really funny is like especially like down in it's funny what you remember. But like I said, we used to wrestle. We would do San Angelo. Well, we would do Abilene. We would do Abilene on Monday, and go across to Odessa on Tuesday, and then go down to San Angelo. Well, somewhere along the way there was a couple of girls who were from San Angelo who would come to Abilene, and so they said, look, why get a hotel room when you can stay with us? Well,
all right.
When you're a young guy like that, why not, right? But what we would do is we would wrestle in Abilene and go to San Angelo, spend the night there, go to Odessa and go back to San Angelo, and then after San Angelo, drive back to Amarillo. Well, that was saving us 2 nights in a hotel. Not to mention that the girls were very nice and fed us and took good care of us. But that part of my, that my career, and it's funny the things that you remember. But I was, we were in San Angelo at these gals at their apartment, and I was poolside when the announcement was made that Elvis Presley had died.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's just funny the things. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where were you when you found out that Elvis died?
You were poolside with a couple gals, so circumstances could have been worse.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, you getting to hang out with some of these girls and get free meals and have some fun. That was not part of the research. I didn't see that in there, so I'm glad we got that. And I'm glad we can tell that story. But yeah, no, really, Ted, this whole thing, you always put me over for the research, but really I love doing it, and I love having the opportunity to talk to you about it, because again, this is one of these things that 10 years, 20, 30, 40 years from now, it's still going to exist online. And I love being able to kind of archive your history in wrestling. And it's a responsibility I take really seriously, man.
Well, I appreciate it, man. You're doing a hell of a job.
Well, I appreciate it. You're doing a hell of a job here on the show, and I can't wait to bring more stories with you next week.
Awesome. Can't wait. And until then, just remember, everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
Catch you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.